Hello, Hoboken. Welcome to Hoboken Talks, Season 3, Episode 11. Hoboken Talks comes to you two Thursday nights a month, and you can catch it on YouTube or Facebook. My name is Danny Schott, and I am the poet in residence of the Hoboken Museum. We're coming to you from the upper gallery of the Hoboken Historical Museum in beautiful uptown Hoboken. We are surrounded by the amazing artwork of Bill Curran. Today's guest is the one and only Buttered Roll. As we begin, let me tell you a little bit about Buttered Roll from his official biography. Buttered Roll is a Colombian-born, self-taught poet, painter, performer, and not-so-complex carbohydrate who resides in Hoboken. He has been faithfully reading and rearranging the written words since he was in his teens. He has been painting with oils and acrylics for approximately 12 years. Exile in Orange, Buttered Roll's first solo visual arts show took place at Smush Gallery from March 2021 through May 2021.
Shout out Smush Gallery.
Buttered Roll has self-published 2 books and donated 100% of the proceeds to the Hoboken homeless shelters. Buttered Roll's writing has been published in Soup Can Magazine, Nuance, Journal from an Artist's Duty Collective, The Aesthetic Apostle, and Breadcrumbs Magazine. Buttered Roll's second solo show was held just a few months ago at Green Hive Studio during the month of May 2023.
Shout out Green Hive.
Buttered Roll has too many tabs open on his desktop.
Way too many.
He also can't find his car keys, or for that matter, his car, and has many forthcoming projects which will surely find him the game and fortune that he is seeking.
If anyone has seen my car keys, please, send me a text, hit me up on Twitter or something like that, email, whatever.
And if you have comments, just send them our way. I see they're coming to us right now.
Hey, what's up, Marie?
So,
I think I saw Melissa in there too. What's up, Melissa?
And
Danny?
Look at all those people. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about your name.
Sure.
I'm presuming that your parents didn't name you Buttered Roll.
You are correct.
How'd you get that name?
Right. It's been with me for a while, Danny, and I'm going to actually give you, for the first time ever, exclusive, I'm going to give you the true story about the origin of Buttered Roll.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So I was born in Bogota, Colombia, in or around the year 1980, in the back of a bodega in Bogota, in the city's downtown, and in the stockroom, actually.
Okay.
And once you go out the back door of the stockroom, there is, or was, a river there. It's a mystical river, too. So not everyone might see it, but it's there, I promise. And my mother, who could not take care of me, simply shoved little me into a buttered roll, and then put the buttered roll on the river. And then there I sailed to the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Sort of like Moses.
Kind of like Moses, not saying that's definitely,
I know you said that.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do,
So when did you come to the United States?
When I was about 8 months old.
Okay, and where did you grow up?
I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Where specifically?
Right, a town called Yardley. Shout out Yardley, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so somewhere along the line, you made your way to Hoboken.
I did.
Did you come here right from Yardley, or were there stops along?
No, there was definitely stops along the way, for sure. I lived in Texas. I went to graduate school in Texas. Shout out all the Texas homies. I hope you're listening. I went to UNT for graduate school.
What's UNT?
University of North Texas.
Okay.
Yep. Shout out Mean Green. And then I came to New Jersey first after that in maybe about 2005 or so. First I was in Trenton, and then West Trenton, and then Rahway, And right after Rahway, I went back to my parents' house for about 2 months, and then I came here afterwards.
Okay, so why Hoboken? How'd you wind up here?
Right. So when I moved here in 2008, I had a bunch of friends here. Shout out all my former Hoboken friends that have moved to the suburbs and done the whole family thing. Shout out to you. You're the real heroes. But so I had a bunch of friends here. They were like, "Hey man, it's a great place for a single dude to be. Come through and we'll have some fun." So I did that for a few years, and then they all moved away and abandoned me.
My story is the same thing. When we
Yeah.
came here in the 80s, it was like really artsy, and it was like,
Really?
it was sort of like Williamsburg.
I can't imagine that.
Williamsburg and Hoboken were very similar,
Okay.
extremely artsy, and then everybody got priced out. So
Right.
I'm sort of like last man standing in ways.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, so similar stories for sure. But I've been here since April 2008.
Have you noticed changes in the past 15 years or 16 years?
Yeah,
Tell me.
I think. Well, I mean, it was majority. I think like sort of like white collar, upwardly mobile, recently graduated from college kids for sure. I almost qualified as that when I moved here, but now I'm an old man.
We all did when we moved here.
Right,
Yeah,
almost. Not so upwardly mobile, but we do what we can.
Right.
So I think the demographic has stayed roughly the same, maybe diversified a little bit, but I mean the town has certainly gotten more expensive though.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you earn a living in Hoboken?
Jersey City.
What do you do?
I'm a social worker.
Oh, okay, interesting. Who do you work with? What kind of social work?
Right. So I finalize or help finalize adoptions in the family court system.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you work like out of the courthouse or?
No. I work in the same wonderful building as the DMV. In the penthouse of that building.
Oh my God, I get butterflies in
Most
my
people
stomach
do, yeah.
when I walk in that building. I know exactly where it is.
I know. Yeah. It's terrible. We all sit there and suffer in silence, all day.
So at least you're not on the first floor, though.
No, not on the first floor. In the penthouse, there is no jacuzzi.
Oh, sorry for that.
Yeah, no sauna even. We do have running water, though. We have running water, so that's good.
That is really good.
For sure.
Air conditioning?
Air conditioning as well.
Okay.
Yep.
it's important. So the way I know you is as a poet and writer. I'm constantly struck by the humor, profundity, and strange imagery in your work. Who are some of your literary influences or just favorites?
Yeah, sure. The person that I keep coming back to, well, there's a few of them that I keep coming back to, but the person that I keep coming back to the most, speaking of literature, is Sam Beckett, for sure. Just his sense of humor, a lot of things about him. He's
The absurdity.
The absurdity. I do love the absurdity. My name is Buttered Roll, so that may come as no surprise to you that I do love the absurdity, for sure. I feel like it's important when you're mentioning Beckett, I feel like a good counterpoint to Beckett is Joyce for obvious reasons. Just very quickly, Joyce was seeming to pile on as far as his literature goes, as far as his writing goes, and what I mean by that is it was hyper-referential, where Beckett is the opposite of that. Beckett seems to me to be stripping away. Basically, just for Beckett, he's trying to get to the foundation or the essentials, for sure, which is what I love.
A friend of mine is trying to get me to join her book club where they're reading Finnegan's Wake.
Oh, wow.
And
What?
I'm like, no,
What
I
kind of
can't.
book club is this? No, I'm sorry.
Finnegan's Wake.
That is not a book club book. I'm sorry.
I think they read a sentence or a paragraph
Okay.
a week
Holy
or something. And
wow.
They get caught up in
Yeah, they should finish by the time the next apocalypse comes around,
That might signal the apocalypse.
Right, maybe.
So who
For
else
sure.
besides Beckett and Joyce?
Well, Joyce not so much. I've never actually
Oh, okay.
successfully read
Well, that's
a
the
Joyce
thing.
novel.
Okay, I've read Ulysses
Right.
maybe 8 times.
I've read it as well.
Never got past page 100.
Right.
And that's one of my goals in
You
life.
did better than I did. I got to maybe like 45, 50 or so. I mean, unless you have an extensive understanding of the history of Christianity, like everything down to like feast days and stuff like that, the references are not going to be cohesive for you. It's not going to be a cohesive experience, I don't think.
Maybe.
So you have to bring a lot to that book, whereas Beckett, you sort of just have to bring your own vocabulary.
Okay.
I think.
Who else now?
Sure. I love Jean-Michel Basquiat, for sure, in terms of visual artistry. I love Keith Haring for what he does.
Wait, you're getting ahead of me.
Oh, yeah.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Sorry. But literature-wise, for me, it's a lot of, it's 2 different huge B words, Beckett and Bolaño. Bolaño is absolutely one of my favorites, too. The character as well. Bolaño was a fascinating individual. He used to, in interviews not so dissimilar to this, he would lie about himself. He would just totally make up stories. He, actually, I believe he passed away due to cirrhosis.
Yeah.
But he lied and told people that he was a heroin addict.
And he really wasn't?
Was not a heroin addict.
Oh my goodness.
Not a drug addict at all. But he would lie and fabricate stories that, I think it's in his head, these things made him more credible as a writer when,
Wow.
he didn't need that. Like his writing is perfectly enough to be.
I read the one book.
Which one? Savage Detectives.
Savage Detectives.
Okay, yeah.
And I really, really liked it.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And I've read his poems,
Okay.
which I like. I have
Right.
two books of his poems.
I would highly recommend Amulet. Amulet is my favorite piece by him. The last 40 pages of that book are some of the best poetic prose that I've ever read in my life, for
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
For
thanks.
sure.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
Okay. I grilled you on the literature. We grew up, I think, we demand the truth. I thought you
You will
told
get
us
it.
the truth about the little river in Bogota.
You shall get it.
You and I are different generations of writers, so we have in our work different cultural references and touchstones. What are some aspects of our culture that influences or pops up in your work? You mentioned Basquiat before, whether it be art or music or film. So let's talk about Basquiat.
Sure.
How? Why?
Sure. Linguistically, Basquiat is someone that really interests me. Even though he's a visual artist, there's very few of his actual paintings that don't feature words, in one form or another. Purposeful misspellings, the crossing out of words. So he does a lot with meaning for me.
Okay.
And there's sort of and this is just me projecting, but there's also with his figures, there's also just a kinetic energy for me to his figures that is just, it's so present and so it looks so alive and so new and so fertile. It's just his work interests me in pretty much every way possible that you can be interested in something.
Okay, later when we look at some of your work, our audience will see the influence, I think, pretty much. You also mentioned, I think you mentioned Keith Haring just
Right.
before. Explain.
Sure. Keith Haring was a lot of different things. Similar to Basquiat's, sort of similar origin stories in New York. Obviously they came from very different places. Keith Haring came from the suburbs of Pittsburgh, I believe. Somewhere around there, I think. Similar to Warhol. Basquiat was, born in Brooklyn.
Right.
But they sort of both started out as street artists in the city, in Manhattan and Brooklyn at around the same time. There's those famous videos of Keith Haring
The
drawing on the subway.
Yeah, I remember seeing him do
Yeah.
that stuff when I lived.
Yep, absolutely.
In the East Village. Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
and I mean, for one person, that sort of is defined by just, the line or whatever. That's Keith Haring.
Certainly.
Absolutely. One of my favorite little anecdotes about Keith Haring is that, he was obviously not an easel painter. This is a person, and neither was Basquiat really. Neither of these people were easel painters. But Keith Haring used to paint himself basically into a corner on the floor. Luckily he painted with acrylic, so this stuff is drying very quickly. But he used to basically work from the edge of huge tarps. His materials that he was using were more industrial as opposed to like fine art stuff.
Right.
And he would paint himself like into a corner of the room. And then, sort of had to sit and wait there for the stuff to dry so he could walk back over,
Mm-hmm. Mac has an interesting comment on Basquiat.
I see.
So the first one.
Interesting. Yes, blackout poetry for sure. Thank you for reminding me of that term. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. How about music?
Sure. Music it's interesting.
I know we have different tastes in that because I remember seeing you wrote something negative about the Beatles or the Stones, and I was
Maybe Neil Young.
I forget.
Okay.
I was like, what the hell? Like, so who are you? It doesn't matter who my musical influences are. Who are yours?
Yeah, I mean, there's
what do you listen? What do you like?
I love hip hop. Hip hop is in terms of artistic forms. I'm certainly not a believer in like the hierarchy of forms or anything like that. That being said, hip hop is the greatest art form that has ever existed on this planet, as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing that can co-opt things like hip hop can. There's just so much good like hip hop that's coming out these days that's just a fusion of so many different types of music. Mm-hmm. It's just a beautiful thing. And then you combine that with the lyricism. There's so many great lyricists out there these days. So hip hop is really my number one love, for sure.
Okay.
For sure, as an art form, for sure.
Okay, we'll talk more about it later when we look at the images you've chosen.
Sure.
Well, like I said before, I know you as a poet. Mm-hmm. Can you share some of your poems with us?
Would love to.
A few minutes worth?
Would love to. So this poem, actually, for the audience members, Danny and I are both in a poem booth exhibit at Galleria Ferro in Newark.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So check that out. Shout out Galleria Ferro. Thank you for that. But this poem is actually featured in that poem booth. I have two in that poem booth. This poem is actually featured in it. It's called the 126. I figured I would read this because it's relevant to Hoboken, the 126 bus. For those of you who don't know, the 126 is the route that goes into the Port Authority. Would highly recommend going to the Port Authority this time of year. It's beautiful.
My wife does it every morning.
Oh, yikes. I am envious.
But I'll tell you one good thing about it.
Okay.
Now that I'm a senior, it's really cheap to get on that bus.
For sure. It's easier than swimming, too.
Just about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, this is called the 126. Here we go. 7 minutes late. The bus stop has reached capacity. A glance down the block reveals nothing but compact cars, oversized strollers for cats, dogs, and babies, and the booze-addled brunch crowd, bottomless bloodies. No sign of the 126, but 7 minutes late is still slightly early. 11 minutes late, and the locals are thumbing their ways through their Twitter feeds. New Jersey Transit has posted a picture in which one of their buses is on fire. Hashtag woke up like this. The state of public transit is encouraging people to swim to the city. Hoboken-based scuba retailers are all in the black. Scuba lessons are $120 an hour. Half off if you can survive swimming in the Henry Hudson. Over 14 minutes past schedule and a cloud of smoke seems to be moving up the block. The 126 is within smelling distance. The locals scramble toward the uptown edge of the bench. By the time the bus takes off, there's only been one casualty. They tried to pay with spare change. About 16 minutes past schedule and just about on time, the 126 is a Patagonia-sponsored tossed salad of asses and elbows. A full-contact sport. The driver makes an extra hard left on 14th, and now I'm engaged to marry the passenger next to me. Cthulhu is a Hoboken resident, and he resides in a swanky uptown pothole. He's a crossing guard during the school year. He throws a worried glance at the 126 as it barrels past his pothole. 27 minutes past scheduled arrival time, almost late, the bus driver jumps on the intercom and says the following.
Attention passengers, this is a reminder that space-time are social constructs, and the Lincoln Tunnel is an interdimensional wormhole. Please, keep your breathing to a minimum as we pass through it.
A proper 31 minutes past schedule and just a few minutes late, the scent of asbestos is in the air. The Port Authority is in sight. As the bus crashes into the gate, the screeching brakes drown out the screaming passengers. The doors open, and it's benedictions to the Most High, phone calls to estranged parents. One man was FaceTiming with his golden retriever. An enthusiastic chorus of "God darn the bus driver" breaks out as the asses and the elbows pile down the steps and into the city.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Someday I'll have to read you my poem, 9th Street Nocturne, which is about the PATH station
Okay.
at 9th Street at midnight. But that, you really got it there.
Yeah, for sure. It's the whole public transit universe, you know?
That's amazing. Let's see what Melissa says. I love this piece so much. Timeline, visuals, all the senses, and a great touch of humor, as always.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yes, that's true. The humor's there, but the insightful imagery is there also. That was awesome. Can you
Thank
give us
you.
one more?
Sure. Absolutely. Let's make it a brief one, actually. Maybe we'll do an unfinished one. Let me see here. Cancel. I should really be better prepared, Danny. I apologize. This is a really short one. It is unfinished. It is called Evil Atlantis. This is really not my first, but one of my only attempts at a love poem.
But it's not finished.
It is not finished. Someday it will be, though.
Let's hear it.
Evil Atlantis. There was a country in which we took place. Somehow temperate and explosively temperamental. There was a sovereign state in which you were the regal temptress, reigning indifferent aristocratic in your Rosicrucian mascara, and I was your most poorly behaved jester, joking remorselessly, pushing punchlines to the point of puncturing lungs. We used to feed each other raspberry gushers in your royal chambers. Fomenting dissent within our own state was our form of foreplay. Our not-so-loyal subjects used to say that we were in love. Can you imagine?
Sounds like it's done to me.
Yeah?
Yeah. What not being done are you talking about?
Right.
It's like a perfect ending.
Right. So I have some other ideas that I want to flesh out within it too, but I think it's definitely at a good place and an adequate place where I can actually read it out. You know,
Right.
So that's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe the other ideas you want to flesh out go in the next poem.
Maybe.
Just
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. That was great. Let's talk about you as an artist. Like your writing, your artwork is
Banger.
visually compelling, witty, and historically or socially significant. Actually, look, there's holes in the book.
I know. Which is true in more ways than one.
Anyway, it's called Disjecta Dismembra,
That's
which
correct.
I got. But what I'm going to ask you first, and it's clear to me, but I'm going to let you explain to the audience the role of history or cultural anthropology in giving meaning to your work.
Sure.
And maybe you could explain to the audience why I said history or cultural anthropology.
Sure. Cultural anthropology, specifically applied cultural anthropology, is what I studied at school. Shout out to mom and dad, thank you. Yeah, that's what I studied in school. I went into school as a history major, still very interested in both of these subjects. But Disjecta Dismember is actually I think it was Brendan who gave me this language. Shout out, Brendan. Good friend of mine, also fellow poet. But basically, it's a visual treatise on the concept of history and historicity. Just the keeping of historical documents and stuff like that. There's one of the series of...
So wait, historicity.
Yes.
I think you explained, you just said the keeping of cultural, is that what historicity is?
That's what historicity is, yes.
So the keeping of cultural...
Of historical documents. Yeah, yeah. And well, the keeping of them and also the interpretation and basically just constructing a historical narrative from historical documents, etc.
Okay.
So there's a series of drawings in Disjecta Dismembra where basically I do portraits of historians. I'm trying to remember. There's the unreliable narrator, I think is one of them. There's a whole bunch of them, and there's also other statements and slides about history in this book as well. But basically the idea right there, the historical record will always be incomplete. History is headless. But basically, the idea here is that I just want to lend, sort of like a personhood and like an authorship to history, and this is sort of highlight that this is not objective. This is not, there's no objective form of history. Everything is subjective. History can be used as a weapon. To use a cliche or an adage, he who controls the past controls the present.
Well, I believe over the past few years, history has been weaponized in ways we haven't seen probably in our lifetime.
Currently, absolutely. Yep.
I mean, in Florida, at least.
That was what I was thinking as well, for sure. They want to rewrite the entire course of history, but, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My son was a history teacher, and we were talking about how...
Where does he teach?
In Jersey City.
Okay.
I forgot. He just stopped. He taught for 8 years.
Okay.
At Infinity, and he's off to law school to Boston University.
Oh,
in
wow.
September.
Okay.
So
good for him.
Yeah. So, but we were discussing how it's a terrible time to be a history teacher, but it's the best time to be a history teacher because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like, there's not really a lot of people that have a firm grasp on it, myself included, and I read about it, so it's a tough thing. Plus it's the historical record will always be incomplete too.
Right.
Like, this is not an objective thing. These are mostly narratives that we tell each other.
I just had, can I tell you, I'm going to skip and talk about myself for a minute.
Sure.
I just had the most amazing thing 2 days ago. I went to the Center for Jewish History in New York to see Maimonides exhibit.
Okay.
And then I walked, it was done, interesting. I walked upstairs and I noticed they had this thing called Exile, and they had an exhibit in this woman, Florence Mentheim. And I was like, oh, how interesting. She has the same maiden name as my mom had.
Okay.
So I read about her and I was like, oh, sort of like my mom's cousin Florrie. She was a New York City librarian. And I was like, oh, she's a spy. And then I looked on Wikipedia. And then it dawned on me, this woman who they have the whole exhibit is my cousin. And I talked to the people there.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, we have been looking for living relatives of hers for the past 15 years. She's like a big deal here.
This is serendipitous.
It's amazing, yeah. And it was just, I was blown away. So the history and the historicity, real important, because I was looking through all her papers they sent me and stuff, and the first thing in her personal correspondence is a letter from my mom to her in 1939.
Wow.
And then...
Did you get to read it?
Yeah, because they sent me the files. Also, a few pages later is a letter from my mother's mother, who perished in the Holocaust, asking for help in getting to the United States and stuff. It was sort of amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing to me. That's
right.
But I don't want to talk about myself too
Right,
much.
that's a beautiful story.
That just happened.
Yeah, I'd like
days
to.
ago.
Let's go back to me. Let's go
Yes.
back to me. But I
Yes.
do want to talk about that with you more for sure.
So, cultural anthropology.
Right.
What is that exactly?
Right. I really don't remember so much. I did a lot of partying at school. I'm of course being slightly facetious. Cultural anthropology is just sort of a culture-centric view of humans, I guess, something like that. You know, and culture can be defined in many different ways. Maybe one comprehensive definition of culture might be a set of reference points that unite a group of people,
Okay.
or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about process. How do you create? Do you start with an idea and then, or do you just start painting?
Right,
Or
right,
like, how do you
right.
do it?
So the processes for writing for me and painting are two very different things. The only uniting factor is that before I do both, I just sort of, in my living room, I just sort of hit my head on the wall of the living room, and that sort of jostles some stuff loose a little bit, some ideas, that are gunked up and stuck in places, that gets them loose and moving around so then I can get them out of my body. I'm being slightly facetious again. Writing, I'm a big idea person. I like concepts. I like working within limitations.
Okay.
I think that there is, in terms of paradoxes that I like to use, I think that there is a beautiful freedom that is inherent in working within limitations, giving yourself rules. If buttered roll is anything, it is a aesthetic lens.
Okay.
It's a structure.
So, for example, what kind of rules or limitations do you give yourself?
Sure, they can be anything. They can be completely arbitrary. The only thing that matters is that there's, in my head at least, there's some sort of coherence to the set of rules, and that's not a rule hard and fast either. I can work incoherently too, for sure.
Right.
But yeah, I like working with rules and limitations, and I'm using a very broad definition for the word rules here too.
I understand that. So you do that both with your writing, the way you see it, and your.
So just for example, the piece that I read, the 126, in terms of a rule for that piece, this is just going to be a piece that's about public transportation and about my experience in that.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why the second poem you read is done.
Oh yeah.
Yes, because you did. I think you seem to have accomplished what you set out to do in that one.
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you.
So when you paint, actually, what do you use? Oil paint, acrylic, both?
Yeah, I do. So oil and acrylic are the first types of paints that I used. I didn't start painting until I was about 30 years old, and now I'm approaching 1 century old.
Okay.
I'm almost
okay.
there.
Okay.
But I've also, over the past 2 years, been doing a lot of watercolor as well. Watercolor is very difficult. Oil. I find oil to be my preferred method of painting at this point in time. It's easy. It's forgiving. It's temperamental, but it's merciful for sure.
Is that how most people see? I'm not an artist. Is that how most people see it, or is that like the opposite of how people see it? I don't know.
I think it's merciful because you can mess up. You can do something where you did not accomplish what you set out to accomplish, and you can fix it
With oil.
with oil.
Why not with water?
With water, once that water hits the paper and makes a stain, you can't reconcile. That's it. It's over. If you don't like it, you throw away the paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I know is harsh, but it is what it is.
So you talk about feelings in your artist statement of disillusionment, exile, and authenticity for your 27-piece Exile in Orange series. Tell us about the Exile in Orange series. Where did it show?
Smush Gallery. Shout out Caitlin. Shout out Ben. Love you guys. Thank you for letting me do what I do.
Where is Smush?
Smush is on Summit Avenue in Jersey City. If you're not following them on the social medias, do it!
You mentioned disillusionment, which implies that you once were illusioned. What are you most disillusioned?
Yeah, I have a lot of illusions, Danny. A lot of them, you know?
What are you disillusioned? Okay.
For sure.
Just
For
say.
sure, yeah. Illusioned and disillusioned simultaneously, you know, the whole spectrum, for sure. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't really, for someone who has the sentimentality that I do, I'm not sure how you exist in this world without being disillusioned, you know, and without feeling. I feel kind of like everyone. I feel kind of like exile is a theme that's common for all of humanity, in terms of history, in terms of really. I mean, if you ask me, you know, a lot of the historical narratives that we share and tell each other maybe aren't true. You know, maybe are just things that we're making up, etc. As sort of, you know, a way to assuage each other or comfort each other.
Sure.
So I think we all live with illusions, for sure.
Okay, which brings us to authenticity,
Sure.
which you said is important. I have an idea of how you might, but how do you define authenticity?
Right.
I mean, it means what's real, but how do you see that?
Right. The word genuine comes to mind. Also, not to sound like a walking cliche, but also to be like true to yourself, you know, and not bend or break your idea of your own aesthetic, I guess.
Okay.
In terms of an artistic aesthetic direction to that term.
Yeah, I find that in my own writing, the ones that don't work the best, that work the worst are the ones where where I'm trying to be something
Sure.
I'm not,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
that, I guess that happens to like all writers sometimes. You
Absolutely.
just escape and you're trying to be something, you know, or trying to do something, you just, okay. One more question about the Exile in Orange. I believe I think you said you use 4 colors: cadmium orange, titanium white, French ultramarine, and burnt umber.
Right.
Is this one of the rules?
Sure,
that you put
yeah.
on yourself?
Yeah, a rule, a limitation. You know, the entirety of that series is, actually, so 3 colors. So the French ultramarine and the burnt umber, when you combine those two, that's how you make like a Mars black.
Wait. Okay, now I got to explain this. I'm a little colorblind. I call it color stupid,
Okay.
but colorblind. I don't always see the same colors.
Yeah.
But wait, you combine ultramarine and burnt
French
umber.
ultramarine and burnt umber to make a black. Yeah.
Wait, is that okay? I'll trust you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, those
Yep,
2 colors
it
make
works.
black.
They
Okay.
do. They do. Yeah, blue and brown.
Okay.
Yep, they make a black. A Mars black that's hopefully has a little depth to it too, depending on how you mix it. But yeah, those were the so really 3 colors that made up that series. So a Mars black, a titanium white, and a cadmium orange.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I didn't understand that. Like that's 3 colors because you mixed the 2, and it didn't make sense to me. But
For
like I
sure.
said,
It barely makes sense to me, so you know,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
we're in the same boat.
so you've donated the proceeds of your 2 books to the Hoboken Homeless Shelter.
Correct. Shout out Hoboken Homeless Shelter.
Why? I mean, this is a softball question, but why the homeless shelter? Like,
Sure.
why is that dear to you?
Yeah, I mean, homelessness is an issue, part of a much larger problem that I care deeply about. So because I am a super privileged individual and I'm able to do stuff like this, I do it. You know? Do.
Okay.
I said do.
Yes,
Sorry.
you did.
I know, yeah.
So, as a social worker, is homelessness part of what you deal with sometimes?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we all deal with it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to Washington Square Park these days, you know, the northwestern corner of Washington Square Park is pretty much like a you know, people are doing some stuff there, you know?
Well, the other place is 6th Avenue between 8th Street and, I don't know, 4th or Waverly. Like,
Okay.
that's like, yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's intense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, we'll get to the images in a minute. One last question. I've seen you read your poetry, do your thing all over.
Yeah.
What places do you most enjoy performing in terms of audience or vibe or locale?
Sure.
Where do you like doing your thing?
Yeah. Last night was one of my favorite readings at Way. Shout out Sure Things. Shout out Marinelle. Shout out John. Keep doing what you're doing. We love you.
I was supposed to go, and I just had a long day yesterday.
You missed it.
I did.
Tons of celebrities there, Danny.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Will Smith showed up.
Oh,
that
damn.
may or may not be true. Don't hold me liable. Yeah, Way is definitely one of my favorites to read.
And where is Way for our audience?
Sure. It's in Jersey City Heights on Palisade Avenue. That's definitely one of my favorite places to read. One of my favorite venues to read in is KGB Bar, the Red Room, which is on the 3rd floor.
Right.
I think. Yeah, I know you've been there. I'm
Yeah.
sure we've been there together at
Yeah,
some point in time.
yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah, I like both floors of KGB.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, look at that.
What's up,
Way is
SJ?
the best. Great. So let's get to the images.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's see what we got there. Okay. Here's the book with no holes in it.
No holes. At least none that you can see. There's still holes in it. You just can't see them in this image.
Okay, we talked about this a little bit, an acknowledgement of the absence of coherence.
Right.
And I highly recommend it. Where could someone get a copy of this?
You can get it on Etsy. The link is in my Instagram bio, or you can just DM me and I'll send you one. Either one works for me. It is $15. Only $15! Yes, only $15. And 100% of the proceeds go to the Hoboken Homeless Shelter. I believe I have 5 copies left, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Could be 4. You never know. Very close to each other. But yes, so this picture is the book. I'm also actually selling. So the book is basically scans of individual watercolors and drawings that I've done over the past 2 or so years or so. So I'm actually selling those images as well. Shout out to everyone that has bought some of them. But in the picture behind the book and the ladder, the book and the images were actually in a show at Studio Montclair. Shout out Studio Montclair in Montclair, New Jersey. So that is from that show. I was actually gallery sitting for them and took the liberty of taking some pictures with the ladder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what that is. So all of those images you see behind the book are actually in the book.
And so people can buy the images or the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And they would contact you again, how?
Yeah,
To get it?
on Instagram, I'm at Buttered Roll, Buttered, Roll, ROLL, one word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. I know there is a next slide there.
Oh my God.
Who's that?
Who is that handsome young man? Oh my God. He's got hair. See, this is proof that I had hair at one point
Yeah,
in time.
sure,
You know,
sure.
when I was born, I looked like this as well. But, you know, at one point in time in the last 100 or so years, I've had hair. So there we go.
So where is that? Outskirts of Philly?
No, I believe that's actually in Germany. I believe that's in Deutschland. Maybe Aachen. I believe I did in high school. I did an exchange program with some German students. Shout out Patrick. Patrick, if you're listening, which I doubt it. But Patrick was my pal in Germany. You know,
Okay.
he came and stayed with my parents. I went over there and stayed with his. But I believe this is in the bedroom that I stayed in Patrick's house. So that was like 1996, I want to believe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, so proof that I actually have an education. Yeah, that is me.
You're graduating something.
Yeah, that's I believe that's the smaller ceremony that we had for the anthropology department. So that was, you go to the larger graduation ceremony, and then following that, you go to the smaller ceremony for the specific major or whatever. But in the foreground, the right foreground of the picture, that's Dr. Kenneth Ackerman, who I studied under in Delaware. Brilliant weirdo. Great person. Really, like I said, when I came into college, I was a history major, and as soon as I took his class, I ran to administration and said that I was changing to anthropology. But just real quick, I took his intro, so intro to cultural social anthropology, 102, and it was a huge lecture hall, stadium seating and whatnot. And I remember him walking into the classroom, basically walking up to the chalkboard, grabbing a piece of chalk, not really saying anything, excuse me, and then just taking the piece of chalk and then eating it. He didn't chew it or anything like that, probably would have broken a tooth. He just swallowed it, and then he posed the question to the classroom, what was he demonstrating?
And the answer is?
The answer is he was demonstrating cultural norms, because everyone in the classroom was looking at him like he had 7 heads, what the did he just do, tribute to him. That was a captivating way to demonstrate that. It altered the course of my intellectual existence. But Dr. Ackerman, there's a million other, less harmful to you ways that you could have demonstrated the same thing. So shout out to him for being daring.
Okay.
And believing in what he taught.
Oh, that's really cool.
For sure.
Wow. Let's look at the next slide. Who's that?
Well, he's actually here with us today. Yep. Don't worry, everyone. He has ensured that the area is safe. He cleared it before we got up here and got on the air. This is my security team right here. He goes with me everywhere that I go.
And what's his name?
He doesn't really like to give out his name.
Okay.
So much publicly. But he, at this point in time, he'll just go by security guard.
Okay.
This is him right here.
How cool is that?
What's up, Mike? Shout out, Mike. Another dope-ass poet. Good friend.
Hey, Mike, Animal.
That's right.
Who, when I first...
Right here. Oh, actually, you know what? This is a good time also to show the fit off a little bit, Oh, wait, hold on. Let me go this way real quick. Sorry, Danny. Don't mean to get on top of you. Is this going to work? I don't know. But anyway.
Nice. Wait. It's going to work. Show
Okay. There we go.
Oh, there's Anna.
Right here as well. Shout out Marie and Danny. And Terracotta. Their dope-ass clothing and merch thing. Get at them before they get super expensive, which is going to happen any day soon.
Where do you get their clothing from?
Right. Terracotta store. You can find them on Instagram. TERRA space. I think it's 2 words. Don't quote me on that. It could be 1 word. Terracotta. TERRACOCTA.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. Now that I've met the security team. Who's this?
That is Francis Bacon. That's pretty much one of my favorite painters. A person that was extremely problematic as a person, for sure, but his painting skills are pretty much unmatched. in my opinion, in the 20th century, for sure.
I thought Francis Bacon lived like in Shakespeare times.
Right. Different Francis Bacon.
Is he American? Is he?
No, he's Irish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, born in Ireland, lived most of his life in London. Also frequented Tangier as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
He is not. Francis Bacon is deceased early 2000s or so. Something like that. Maybe earlier. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But he lived a very trauma-filled life, and you can see it in his work, for sure. And I love it. It's so visceral. It's violent. But it is immediately emotionally relevant for me. Like I can't look at one of his paintings without getting, my heartstrings just pulled on and manipulated.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm gonna look for his work.
Yeah.
Because I've heard the name Francis Bacon,
For sure.
But like I said, I don't know. I thought he was some
For sure.
guy in
He's
the
definitely
Renaissance.
in a few permanent collections in the city. The MoMA, for sure. The Chicago Art Institute has one of my favorites of his, one of his first paintings that became popular. And famously, anecdotally, about Francis Bacon, the Queen, I think it was Queen Elizabeth, actually saw the painting and asked to whoever she was with, "Oh my God, what is this god-awful painting?"
Oh, really?
No, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go to the next slide. Okay.
There he
You know
is.
who that is.
Yes.
We talked about Basquiat before. Anything you want to add to what we were saying before?
An intriguing person too. Mm-hmm. In addition, like he was fluent in 4 different languages by the time he was 12 years old, and misunderstood and certainly misrepresented, for sure. And now, oh God, you see his paintings on merch, and there's there's people that put his paintings on T-shirts and shoes and whatnot, and there's
his paintings on T-shirts and shoes and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's stuff like his work on
Right.
T-shirts and shoes also. Which
Right.
is
So many,
crazy.
and Basquiat's not someone that you can be inspired by or imitate without looking exactly like him.
Right.
Which is Beckett too. That's Beckett and Basquiat are both extremely singular as artists.
Mm-hmm.
You can't imitate them without literally replicating their entire style. Oh, thank you, Marie, for posting that.
At the store, yes. Let's go on to the next slide. Keith Haring.
Yes. Different than Basquiat, obviously, Keith Haring is wearing one of his paintings. So, Keith Haring was someone that was conscious of the contemporary art moving forward was basically going to be, you wouldn't be able to decontextualize it from capitalism, I think. So Keith Haring is someone who's conscious of that.
Yet Basquiat was one who was friends with Andy Warhol.
Right. Well, they were both friends with Warhol, for sure. Warhol was famously jealous of Basquiat because Basquiat could paint quicker than Warhol could. But yeah, Keith Haring is someone, obviously, we talked about him before, who is very important to me. Also in terms of HIV awareness, too. Keith Haring, that's what he passed away from. So he was a huge figure in HIV activism and awareness.
Certainly.
In the late 80s or so. One of the first really public figures to platform that issue, for sure.
Yeah. Let's go on to the next. Who's that?
Oh my God, that is one of my loves. That is myself. I'm of course speaking of myself. I do love myself, and then there's Sergio. I love Sergio too. He's a good friend. In terms of conversationalists, I'm not sure that I know anyone who is a better conversationalist than Sergio is. But please do not tell him that I said that.
We won't.
Yes, thank you.
Where are the two of you sitting?
That is at Green Hive. Shout out to Green Hive again. Chris and Jules. Green Hive Studio is, I don't remember the address, but it's on 45th Street in Union City. If you're there, stop by and say hello. Tell them Buttered Roll sent you. But that is the show that I had in Green Hive during the month of May 2023. entitled Buttered Roll and the Big Bad Drop. But basically, the most comprehensive showing of my visual work to date. There was a total of 47 paintings, visual pieces of art in the show. This particular photo is from a night where Sergio and I were in conversation during the show. Sergio and I talked about a lot of the frequent topics that we talk about, during our late night FaceTimes, which we occasionally do topless.
Oh, wow.
Subscribe to my OnlyFans. Just kidding.
So Art with a Lisp has a question before we move on. When is your next poet feature?
Sure. August 19th, I'm performing in Staten Island. I think that's the next one.
For Thomas Fukalora?
Yeah. Shout out Thomas Fukalora, living legend, huge inspiration for sure. Shout out Matt Figs as well.
Where at in Staten Island? That bookstore?
That's a good question. I should know the answer to that question,
Staten
Danny.
Staten Island will do.
Is my face red? Is there egg on my
Staten
face?
Island will do.
Yeah. It's on Staten Island. I believe it's Poetry in the Park, but I'm featuring there with another amazing poet, Mr. M.A. Dennis, as well. Dope-ass poet. Look him up, please. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. I think that's the next one. Unless I'm forgetting something, which I could be. The memory is not perfect.
If you remember, we'll get back to it. Let's
Yeah.
go to the next slide. Oh, what's that? That's our background. What is
It
that?
is. That's a good question. I would like to know the answer to that question too, Danny. I have no idea what that is. It is a mural that exists, I want to say it's in Utah, but I could be incorrect about that. There are petroglyphs all over the southwestern portion of this country, and all over the world too. In France, Spain, Iraq, Iran, all over the place, there exist these monuments that are extremely hard to date, because in order to date something, at least carbon dating, you have to have organic material. And a lot of these petroglyphs are not made from organic material, so they are very hard to date. But I believe this one is dated to about maybe the 3rd or 4th century of the Common Era, so like 300 or 400 AD. Obviously indigenous in nature. And yes, Danny, good question. What is that? Is it representational? Is it mythological? What are these creatures?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good question, for sure. So, these are the things that keep me up at night, for sure. 1,600-year-old cave drawings.
I see it. Let's go on to the next one. What's that?
Sure. So that is one of the main pieces in my Exile in Orange series. It is part of a triptych. So there are 2 other pieces that go along with that piece. Shout out to the homie Danielle. Miss you. She is the owner of this piece. But basically, it is a depiction of a celestial event.
I see similarities between what we just looked at
Absolutely.
and this one.
Absolutely. So there is a plasma physicist that I was very interested in about 3 years ago. His name's Dr. Anthony Peratt. I believe he's still teaching somewhere in the Southwest, but I could be making that up. He could be deceased. I could totally be making that up. I have no idea. So he's a plasma physicist. He has a theory that around 10,000 BC, at the time that the last ice age was declining, there was a extinction level event that was caused by plasma discharge from the sun. And he theorizes that during this extinction level event, the humans that were on Earth at that point in time would have seen figures in the sky not dissimilar to the figure that this person in the bottom foreground is looking at.
Or like the petroglyphs
Yes.
we were just looking at.
Yeah, well, not those specifically. So
Why not those?
right. So the petroglyphs that he basically, part of his actual evidence for this theory is that with a machine that I can't remember the name of, he can replicate these shapes because they're actually the shapes that plasma discharge takes.
Oh my goodness.
So his theory is that obviously you can see the shape is humanoid. It's anthropomorphic. It looks like a human.
Right.
But these are the actual shapes that plasma discharge from the sun takes in the sky if this, according to his theory, if this were to happen.
That's amazing.
So his theory is that, the people saw this, the people that did not immediately become incinerated, because that's what it did, this extinction level event was caused by the plasma discharge, which triggered extreme flash flooding from basically the entire northern hemisphere of this planet all the way south. Possibly the reason for so many, flood narratives in terms of monomythology or whatever. Shout out Joseph Campbell. But basically, it's a hypothetical historical event. This person is watching
that
an extinction level event about to happen. And then, according to this man, the people that actually survived this event recorded it on the walls of caves and whatnot by drawing these figures, because these are the figures that they drew or that they saw in the sky.
Okay.
Just a theory. Just a theory.
Wow.
An idea is something to muse over.
Okay, let's move on. We talked about Sam Beckett, so
there
we're going
he
to move on
is.
from him to the next one.
Oh, my God. Such an important figure. I mean, in my opinion, pretty much the best soloist that has ever existed on this planet in terms of music. This particular song in general changed my life. I was very familiar with Sound of Music, and with that song, how could I forget her name?
Julie Andrews.
Julie Andrews. My God, apologies to the Andrews family.
There's two of us.
Right. But John Coltrane took something that I thought was so corny, and I did not like the song. I did not like almost anything about it, even the melody. And he took it and he repurposed it and made it cool and made it just an amazing song.
It's funny. My friend Reggie Gaines, also an amazing poet.
Shout out Reggie Gaines.
The first time he heard it was Coltrane.
Okay. Oh,
And
interesting.
then a few years later, he saw the movie.
Right.
What the hell's going on? To him, it was just as foreign as anything could be.
Yeah.
Julie Andrews.
That's interesting. So
this was my favorite things to Reggie.
Yeah. We had the exact opposite encounter with
Yes.
this. Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, let's move on. Who are those guys?
Oh, Billy Woods and Kenny Siegel. Yo, shout out Woods. Shout out Kenny Siegel. Woods is probably my second, again, don't believe in hierarchies, but my second favorite rap artist at the moment. And him and Kenny Siegel dropped an amazing album this year called Maps. Billy Woods, in terms of artistic output, is extremely prolific, admirable. His writing is absolutely amazing. His flow, the man is a poet through and through. In terms of poetic aspirations, it does not get much better than Billy Woods, for sure.
How cool. Cool. Okay, I'm going to ask the obvious question. You said he's your second favorite this year. Who's your first?
Quelle Chris. Quelle Chris is the full package. Quelle Chris is easily one of the best artists that is currently alive on the planet. Again, do not believe in hierarchical structures, but Quelle Chris is the best.
Got it. Got it. Let's go to the next. Yeah? Tell me.
Yo, okay, so this is actually one of my current favorite Instagram accounts. It's all AI generated, so these images are not real. They are AI generated.
Really?
Yep, 100%. And they're all, I don't remember exactly what this dude's handle is. Something like, it has AI in the title, AI generated something. But basically all his Photographs are just AI-generated images of like Midtown Manhattan with different characters in them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I shared this with you just to sort of talk about the future and how it's...
Well, the future's going to have to wait for our next Hoboken Talks.
Okay.
That'll be a whole other conversation.
Yikes.
Let's go on to the next one.
Ah, yes. Right. So yeah, this is obviously a beauty pageant. This is one of the watercolors that I've done in the past couple years. It was in my show at Green Hive. Yeah, it's a beauty pageant between a chemical toilet that is on fire and a dumpster that is on fire. And then in the foreground of the painting, you see to the left Buttered Roll. In the middle is Simon Bolivar. And on the right is a ambiguous looking character called Alberto. Wow. But they are the three judges for the beauty pageant between the chemical toilet and the dumpster that is on fire.
Oh my goodness. See, we don't need to talk about the future. This does it for us.
Right.
It for us.
For sure.
Let's go on to the next one.
Yes, this is also Simon Bolivar, who is visiting the historical record gift shop. This is a drawing. I believe the materials are just marker on canvas. But yes, Simon Bolivar is visiting the historical record gift shop. Here we see Hermes Trismegistus, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Picasso as the Minotaur, Pythia. In the foreground, Simon Bolivar is holding... who is that? Is that Ganesh?
Ganesh, yeah.
Ganesh, yeah, is holding Ganesh, the elephant. And then we have Mommy.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does it say by Mommy?
It says on the market.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So let's avoid psychoanalyzing this painting at the moment.
Too
okay?
late. Too late.
Yeah.
It's doing it for you.
Yeah. Let's not look into that too much further. Next slide.
What is next? Let's see. That's it. I want to thank you, Buttered Roll.
Yeah.
This has
been great, Danny. Thank you so much
conversation.
for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah. It was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah.
What else have we got on the screen as we wrap up? Okay, coming soon on Hoboken Talks. I'm guessing in 2 weeks, but I'm not sure of that. We've got Pat Lombardi, and after that, Frank Hanovan. We want to thank our sponsors, the New Jersey Historical Commission, New Jersey Council for the Humanities, Shipyard Circle, all those people who help keep the Hoboken Historical Museum afloat. Thank you all. Also, Iron State. Oh, and of course the exhibit that's on the main floor, something you should catch while it's here. The Fires, which is about a particular time in Hoboken history. It's about a particular time, but it's about now also. And it's really an amazing show. You should definitely catch it while you can. Oh, also up here, you can see some of Bill Curran's artwork. It's surrounding us right now. Bill is a singular and an amazing artist. And it's up till August 6th. So come on over and check out the artwork. And this one is something special to me because as part of my being poet in residence, we're doing a reading here. It's called Red Kalina, Poetry for a Free Ukraine, and it's going to be Sunday, September 10th at 10 p.m. And we've got Bob Holman, Alina Jennings, Vasil Makno, and our very own publicity director here, Vera Sirota. And it's going to be live and in person, but it's also going to be live streamed. So you should check it out on September 10th. Once again, I'd like to thank you. Subscribe, comment, like, share, visit the museum.
All of the things.
Yes. Thank you very much.